Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. This is GM Philosophy, and I'm the GM Philosopher. And today I want to talk about basically getting better at running games by evaluating yourself, evaluating your present gaming skill level, and then back engineering how you can get better. And this is really important because this involves a very important life principle that I believe in very much, which is if you are not improving, you are deteriorating. In other words, if you're not putting effort into growing and developing a skill, then you're probably deteriorating in that skill. Or if you're not trying to improve, seeking to improve some kind of vital infrastructure in your life, it's probably deteriorating. We have to put energy into things. We have to invest energy into things to grow them and make them better. If we do not invest any energy into things, they will begin to deteriorate. When discussing this topic, I like to kind of refer to the second law of thermodynamics. Obviously, it doesn't exactly equate to this, but it's a really good example of how to conceptualize this in our minds. The Copilot AI for Bing says, the law of entropy, primarily articulated in the second law of thermodynamics, states that the total entropy of an isolated system can never decrease over time, and it tends to increase, leading to greater disorder. Okay? Or as Wikipedia says, entropy is central to the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy of an isolated system left to spontaneous evolution cannot decrease with time. What does that mean? Well, in the case of TTRPGs, if we treat the way that we run games, our entire game master skill conceptualized, like the whole compartment of life that encapsulates our skill as a game master and the skill of table craft, running games, game master craft, well, entropy and chaos is kind of the dissemination of useful things. And chaos results when the game becomes less coordinated, less creative, right? Now, I realize that chaos and creativity sometimes go hand in hand, but I'm not necessarily talking about the chaos of creativity. I'm talking about the chaos of order and structure as it relates to the activity of a group of people sitting around a table to co-create a story narrative together, okay? And in this case, entropy is like the dysregulation of that. So in other words, if the game master does things that take away from the players being able to tell the amazing stories of their characters, this is greater entropy, greater chaos. If the players are doing things that are taking focus away from the game, that are distracting from the game, this is increased entropy, increased chaos in the system of the game, okay? And I'm not even talking about the game system like the rules. I'm talking about the system, that is the closed system of you and your players sitting down to create a story together. And that process is a system. And it takes skill to run that system. When you do not apply energy to that system, i.e., when you do not apply new hypotheses for how to improve, when you do not apply lessons from past games, when you do not analyze and adapt to overcome problems, you are ceasing to invest energy into your game system. Thus, it's going to become more entropic. It's going to become more chaotic. There's going to be less stabilization. It's slowly going to destabilize into a point where the games are probably going to be weird and they're not going to be as good, right? How do we prevent that? We prevent that by investing energy, by injecting energy, by investing learned lessons, by analyzing data, and then putting new processes into place to help the gameplay run smoother. I want to give you an example of this. The other night, I ran my first session of the second iteration of The Darkest Dawn. Now, if you want to join one of my games and start playing games, you find a link in the description. If you want to see if the GM Philosopher is the game master he claims to be, a true master of the game, well, then guess what? You can join one of my games and try it out. The link is in the description. I have several games open right now, but they're filling up fast, so make sure you jump in there. With that being said, it's really important to give you an example of this because I think that this will help to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Now, the other night I was getting ready to run the second iteration of it. And this is new for me. I have never actually run the same session or campaign for two different groups. I've never, ever done it. So this was a brand new thing for me. So this was really interesting. Obviously, the players started making very different choices right away. This was to be expected. I expected this. What I did not expect was for the pacing to be so different. The first time I ran this session with the first group, the pacing was so different. Whereas with this group, it was slower. It was more methodical, okay? The first group spent way less time in the introductory scene. They pretty much saw it, some things happened, and then they moved on. The second group that I ran through it, they really went in depth. They investigated this area. They did a whole bunch of things in this first scene that didn't happen the first go round. Luckily, not luckily, because I actually did this on purpose. So chance favors the prepared mind, right? I had actually prepped better for this session after running it the first time. I thought, okay, here's some things I wish I would have had the first time. And I created them and got them ready. So it was better from my standpoint on one hand. But at the same time, I will admit, the pacing threw me off. I actually feel like I could have run that session better because I was kind of expecting a different pacing. And here's exactly how it threw me off. I found myself instead of, and this is what I should have done, instead of focusing in on every player choice, instead of just pacing it according to player choice, which is how we should do it, I was thinking of pacing it by scene. This introductory scene was a certain thing. And I had in my mind that this was going to be a scene and it was going to move past the scene to the next scene. And I was already thinking about the next scene. Here's where I made the mistake. Hey friends, real quick, I just want to let you know that I give away a free top 10 tips ebook, basically 20 plus years of running games compiled into a 10-step ebook, 10-minute quick read to help you level up your games overnight. This is something I offer to help us with our mission here at GM Philosophy, which is to empower game masters to run better games. So make sure you grab that. Links in the description. I also want to invite you to join our free Discord. The GM Philosophy Discord is a place for game masters to gather together, share tips, tricks, take place in contests. We run one-shots in there. We have all kinds of awesome stuff going on. We're now publishing a magazine if you want to get in on that, or get the first copy of the magazine, which it just has gone live just recently. You can join for that. We have all kinds of homebrewed resources, a whole library of stuff people put together, one-shots, magic items, NPCs, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to take your jamming to the next level, you should really jump in the Discord. It's our community. We're over 550 game masters strong right now. It is growing so fast, and there's awesome stuff going on in there every day. So don't miss the opportunity there. So make sure to join us. And if you want to take things deeper and really uncover my specific, unique take on the craft, I have recently published my newest ebook, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. This book is all about emotional resonance, how to run emotionally resonant games that will wrap your players in and feel more like a transcendent co-creation experience, not just a game, a true memorable story created together. If you want to foster this deeper experience at your table, friends, I have laid out all of my tactics, insights, and philosophies for how I do this. Techniques I've learned over 24 years of running games. You can grab that today for a low introductory price. Do not miss it. Link is in the description. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you would like to hear me talk about in the future. I love taking comments and turning them into video concepts. So also smash that thumbs up button. It helps me grow my channel and continue the mission here at GM Philosophy. All right, let's get back to the video. When this group ran it, I should have thought of this scene as an arc, and that there were going to be little scenes built into this arc by the player choices. So there were a couple different things. There was like a wagon, and that was like one scene. And then there was a tree with a body hanging from it, hanging by a rope. They found a person who it looked like they had tied a rope around themselves and leaped from the tree. Did this really happen this way? Did it not? This is something that they were investigating. This was a scene. There was a scene where they were digging a hole to put the body in. That was a scene. Okay. So there were all these scenes. And see, so I started off on the wrong foot by conceptualizing this as a scene. And then I was thinking about the next scene, which was going to be like an inn and tavern they would probably stop at because it was very close by. What I failed to do was to take into account that these players were going to pace very differently. And when I realized that the pacing was going to be different, I should have abandoned my previous idea about scenes and adopted the scenes that they chose as the spotlight. We always want our player characters to drive the narrative, okay? So this video actually is just as much about pacing as it is about learning from our experiences. Now I'm realizing that as I'm getting into the video. But when we begin a scene, it's really important that we let go of all preconceived notions of not only how the story was going to go down, which I had already done, but even deeper level than that, how it's going to happen on a narrative scene framework. I didn't anticipate this. And the fact that I didn't catch on that this was happening made the pacing, I felt like I kind of made it jerky and it wasn't as smooth as it could have been. If I would have been very present in the moment, free flowing through this with the players and just focusing on every decision they made and then doing my very best with every decision they made, I would have been way ahead of the game. I would have run it much smoother. And I think that's what the answer to this is we can't think about things too rigidly. And so where do we draw the line? When we're running players through a scene, when we're co-creating with them, when we're running the NPCs and they're giving them clues and they're doing things, how do we know what to focus on? How do we know what to pace? It's all based on player actions, player choice. When a player decides to do something, we think, okay, what's the size of that thing? What's the scope of it? What's the tone and theme of that choice? How do we react to that? How does the world respond to it? What does the world do when this player does this thing or says this thing or makes this choice? And if we stay focused and present and we treat that as the most important thing, rather than having 25% of our brain power thinking about the next thing or something, right? This is what I'm talking about. I was trying to think ahead too much. I was starting to think ahead down a path we weren't even traveling on. And so it was wasted energy. I was only using part of my brain power for what was actually in front of me. So now, having had this experience, I want to apply that knowledge to my next game. I want to make sure that I'm contributing to my game master craft. I want to be a master of the game, friends. I want to be the best game master I can possibly be. I want to run the best games I can possibly run, make the games the best possible games for my players. I want to create the best story possible with these other amazing people. And the only way I'm going to do that is, once again, by injecting energy into my skill, into my craft. And there we go, back to that law of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy of an isolated system, i.e. your players and you, left to spontaneous evolution. In other words, I don't mean spontaneity in the game. I mean spontaneity as in the GM isn't going to take any action to try to make the game streamlined. They're not going to do anything. Maybe this means they're going to look on their phone, or they're going to get up and walk away, or they're going to do just like crazy things that are not immersive, that break immersion. This would be what I'm talking about. Spontaneous evolution, entropy, chaos. We don't want that. We want to be very intentional with our goals at the table, which is to create the best story with these players possible. This is the goal. This is why we're sitting down to do this. And it's fun to do that. And it's creative, and it's an artistic expression. It's intellectual art. It's ephemeral art in a great sense. But we have to be intentional about that process. And so we have to inject our skill. We have to inject lessons. We have to analyze and adapt every time we run games. And if you keep doing that, you will keep improving. But friend, if you don't keep improving, you're going to start backsliding. You're going to start forgetting those lessons that you practiced and you honed through those games you ran. You're going to start to like dial back on things you used to really focus on. Why? Because without focused energy, there is no fuel going into the process. This is the fuel we give it. We as game masters have to give it the fuel of our attention, of our care, of actually taking it seriously and trying to make it better. So there are my thoughts on that. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let's continue the conversation down below. And with that being said, that's going to be it for this one. Roll some D100s for me at your next game. Empowering game masters to run better games is the goal here at GM Philosophy. I'll see you awesome people on the next one.